Britain's far-left activism has now been branded an issue of national security as dozens of banks and factories have been vandalised across the country. GBNews' exclusive new documentary, Britain's Far Left Exposed, tracks recent activism conducted by far-left protesters, including Palestine Action and Youth Demand, an environmentalist group campaigning against Israel's war with Hamas. GBNews reporter Charlie Peters now joins me in the studio to discuss this. What have you discovered, Charlie?
Well, several things. We've been tracking these protest groups, these extreme protest groups, for a number of months now, and we're looking into the extent to which they're having an effect not only on our democracy, our ability to carry out our political processes, which some critics are saying is being threatened by coercion and threats, but also now increasingly threats to our national security. Now, last week we saw one protest group called Palestine Action vandalise some 20 Barclays banks from the south of England all the way up to Scotland. Just one set of arrests in that action, and that was in the city of London near Bishopsgate. And yesterday we saw another set of Barclays banks being vandalised in London, but also we saw in Kent an arms factory linked to a company called Instro Precision that was sufficiently vandalised by a group of Palestine Action protesters who said they were targeting it because of its link to Elbit Systems. Now, Elbit Systems is a big Israeli security technology company. It's an arms maker. It deals with drones and all the rest of it. But it also has a UK subsidiary, and it's closely linked to the British Armed Forces. Now, after this vandalism yesterday, and Palestine Action have been protesting outside this factory for years, the company Instro Precision said that it makes electro-optics and night vision goggles for the British Army and the British Armed Forces, and this sort of action was highly irresponsible during a time of global instability. And this morning, Lord Walney, who's the government's independent advisor on political violence and extremism, said that it was a threat to our national security. He told GB News that it was highly irresponsible to be engaging in that sort of stuff, and said that the government's process of arrests had not deterred the group. So we've been tracking these protests, these organisations and their direct action in recent years, but in particular in recent months since the conflict flared up in the Near East. And among several discoveries, I think one is really key, and that's the link between environmentalist groups and now pro-Palestinian groups. So in the action we saw last week where those 20 banks were vandalised, it was run alongside by Palestine Action, but also another group called Shut the System, which describes itself as an underground environmentalist cell. In April, we revealed this new group called Youth Demand, which is a youth Just Stop Oil movement being built up in alignment with Palestine Action. They threw paint on the MOD main building in April. And as you can imagine, with all of that sort of action taking place, we've heard quite some strong criticism in the documentary, which you can play for you now.
I think more generally there is a nervousness and a hesitation within the institutions to take on forms of extremism that don't fit the prevailing narrative.
I mean, the thing that I worry about is the possibility of them escalating.
We have been willing to tolerate extremism from some of these groups far too much, and the authorities have taken completely the wrong approach, unfortunately, up until now.
And as a part of that process, people are asking, why do they do this? Why do Palestine Action keep getting away with this sort of protest and other groups? Well, fundamentally, it works. Elbit Systems has shut down 2 of their factories and their subsidiaries in the Midlands and also in Kent as a consequence, in Greater Manchester, as a consequence of these protests. So it is working, and they're making significant losses as a consequence.
Charlie, when can we see the documentary?
Well, the documentary is now live on the website exclusively for our members.
Brilliant. And we must read out a statement from Palestine Action in response to this documentary. Instro Precision is wholly owned by Israel's largest weapons firm, Elbit Systems. The factory frequently exports weaponry to Israel, who are committing genocide in Gaza. As a party to the Genocide Convention, Britain has a responsibility to prevent the occurrence of genocide. When our government fails to abide by their legal and moral obligations, it's the responsibility of ordinary people to take direct action. There you have it, Charlie. Thank you very much indeed.